So last week I talked about death. It was a melancholic and dreary discussion. But this week I want to focus on something a bit more positive, at least in some ways. Hope. In my estimation, there is no single more consequential virtue that is lacking in young men today. There's plenty of others missing, to be sure, but I think hope is the one which carries with it the greatest ability to change the future. If hope is lacking, a man will have no reason to strive for something better. And as unpopular as it is to say today, men ultimately are the ones who drive society forward. It's what we're made for. To work and to image God by advancing the world around us. But all of this has been overturned in the modern world. No reason to act honorably in a world that derides you for it. No reason to sacrifice for the future if the future isn't worth sacrificing for. You see, hope is that virtue which allows us to believe that the future is, in fact, worth it. And make no mistake, it is worth it. As I mentioned last week, I do not know how to offer hope today, other than to point to Christ. I have found no other logical source for hope in this broken world, other than the promises afforded to the man who submits himself to his Creator, Jesus Christ. Perhaps other people have a rational source for hope outside of Christ. Frankly, I doubt it. But regardless of all that, hope is necessary for the formation of a better tomorrow. Now, this video is not primarily meant to be an evangelistic effort, but rather a simple journey of my thoughts regarding the topic of hope and its consequences today. Unfortunately, nihilism and apathy abound in our young men today, and reasonably so, given how poorly they've been treated by society for the last several decades. Broadly speaking, at a societal level, you get what you incentivize. And the West has done everything it can to incentivize disenfranchised, hopeless, and weak young men in recent decades. We are getting what we deserve. The problem, of course, is that what we deserve as a society is not good, and will inevitably lead to our demise. A course correction is in order. And I think it starts with teaching young men to hope again. Consider this my contribution. This world, as it is full of pain, loss, suffering, and despair. But it is also full of truth, full of goodness, and full of beauty. We have conditioned ourselves to focus on the negative and to ignore the positive. Hope allows us to look at the world as it is, seeing fully the depravity, the despair, the despondency, and yet still march on. That act of marching on, despite trial and turbulence, multiplied by thousands and thousands of young men in the West, that is how we course correct. If you are a young man listening to this video, consider this a clarion call towards hope. Choose to fight on, recognize that this life is going to suck most of the time, but don't let that fact keep you down. Really, that's how greatness is born. Doing something even if it seems doomed to fail. Acting honorably even if the world is incentivizing the opposite. Find yourself an imperfect woman. Commit yourself to her fully and sacrifice yourself, not for her every whim, but for the things that are truly good for her and for your future children. Learn to lead, learn to accept failure. Get yourself to a Bible-believing church. I know I said I wouldn't evangelize, but honestly, this will all come much more naturally if you just go to church. If I had to give advice to any young man who was wayward and purposeless today, I would tell him to go to church, one with a proper biblical worldview, and start hitting the gym. Literally do those two specific things and your life will improve measurably. Beyond that, find a vision for yourself. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be completely mapped out. but it should be something that you can work towards, ideally something that you can eventually develop specific and measurable goals towards. Start working towards that vision of the future, even in its imperfect state. Last week, I mentioned a sermon that I preached at my grandfather's funeral recently. The title of that message was A Legacy of Hope Amidst Suffering. I spoke briefly about the parallels between my grandfather's life and the story of Job. And here's a little excerpt. Quote, "Lord knows this world isn't going to pull any punches, but we all have a choice as to how we respond. Will we let it break us? Will we wallow away in self-pity? Or will we choose something different? Something admittedly more difficult, but something better? Will we choose to trust that something beyond ourselves, something yet unseen, is faithfully and benevolently guiding us towards a better future? We all have that choice. And my request to all of you is that you seriously contend with that choice. Don't just dismiss it offhand. The choice between hope and despair, between faith and doubt, between Christ and everything and anything else. I would encourage you to choose hope, as my grandfather did, as my father does, as Job did, and as I do. Place your faith in the only one who is able to live up to the expectations, and you will find an entirely new world. I have no doubt that's what my grandfather wanted for all of us, and I have no doubt that at this very moment, if we could hear him again, he would echo Job's response to the suffering he endured." End quote. It's true that we as young men face unique challenges today, but our forefathers were certainly challenged as well. In different ways, admittedly. But the same timeless truths that carried them amidst war, disease, famine, and a plethora of other sufferings, these are the same truths that can be trusted to carry us. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light and momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 through 18. As always, thanks for listening. Let me know your thoughts.